Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Looks like that we're about ready to start some attacks in the Middle East. I'm just guessing, kind of, I guess, putting it all together. But apparently that Great Britain, the United Kingdom, has called some kind of emergency meeting of their top ministers, and the Prime Minister is announced that they're pulling in all the ministers or something like that tonight, this evening, to go over some kind of emergency meeting. There's been rumors of that happening or something similar to that in the United States. Most people believe it's in response to Yemen and what they're doing there in the Middle East. And so, we've been warning them. It could be some strikes, and who knows how that will expand. Is it just going to be us doing some things like we've done in Syria for years, or is that going to cause things to kind of blow up figuratively and literally, and eventually spiral into something else? I don't know, but it's definitely something to be aware of, and certainly has the possibility. There's so much tensions over there now with everything that's going on in the Middle East. So we need to certainly be watching that. I was thinking earlier, been just kind of tidying up things around the homestead, preparing for this big winter storm that we're going to get. Maybe a little bit of precipitation, 2, 3, 4 inches maybe, but a lot of really cold weather. So we're trying to make sure that everything's, batten down the hatches kind of thing, so we're ready for it and the animals are ready. But I was doing some thinking about why folks like yourself and myself, I'm including myself in this, why we even get on YouTube and other platforms, Rumble and a few other places, Twitter, I guess, X, whatever it's called now, specifically when it regards to prepping. And so we're out there, perusing the videos and the posts and reading books and things like that, trying to figure out how to be prepared. And I know that many people might say the answer is because they're a bunch of paranoid kind of people, and I, of course, don't think that at all. In fact, most of the preppers, for the lack of better terms, that I have personally met and engaged with, they're not paranoid at all. They're not that type of people. I mean, there's certainly a few, but most of them are very level-headed people, and they see that things are getting worse, and they realize that we all, as individuals, as creations from the Father in heaven, we all have a moral obligation, a duty to take care of ourselves and not to pawn that off on some other thing, entity, person, government, whatever. We're responsible for ourselves, and we need to keep it that way. But even more so than that, like, why are we doing this? Why are we watching? Not why are we prepping? I mean, that most of us can answer that. Why are we watching videos and reading books and trying to consume as much information as we can? I mean, some of it's certainly an entertainment factor, getting ideas, just keeping up on top of the news. There's all these different reasons, but I suspect one of the reasons is because we, as a modern people, for the most part, have lost somewhat, at least a little bit, and for some it's a lot, have lost that natural ability to just know what to do when things get bad. And maybe there is a little bit of worry that this time around, what's happening is going to be much worse than things that's happened in the past. And so our level of preparedness needs to be substantially increased, more so than just, there's a snowstorm coming, or, a flood or a hurricane or tornado or something like that. This is bigger. And what we're watching is, kind of a collapse of everything. I think that's a very simplistic way of putting it, that we're just watching everything kind of fall apart. And since none of us have experienced that in our lifetime, we're a little concerned, and so we're trying to get ideas from everyone else. And so I was, kind of wondering, why is it? And I think it's because as much as most of us don't want to admit it, and again, I'm not putting anyone down. I think there's varying degrees of this, but most of us, we've partaken in the system enough that we're worried that we've lost that ability to figure things out. We've lost that ability to take care of ourselves, to raise animals, to make a garden grow and produce and preserve it, and fix things, and stuff that our grandparents and great grandparents, they just knew how to do things. They knew how to take care of things. They repaired their own stuff. They built things out of, how many of you can think back, probably no more than 2 or 3 generations, and find people in your family tree that built their own homes, and they really took care of themselves. They did a lot of stuff. They just were a jack of all trades. My grandfather was definitely that way. He could fix anything, he could build anything, he could grow anything. Had virtually no education. I don't believe he actually finished high school. I think he maybe a first year or two of high school. And yet he could do so many things. And that's very common of that era and before. And then, of course, government came in, the system came in, things got easier. We don't have to worry so much about protecting ourselves because it's not been too bad. We don't have to worry about, protecting ourselves from the wilds and from the bad people. We don't have to worry as much about if your house catches on fire, or if something breaks. You call a mechanic, you call a repairman, you call 911. And for most people, those services and more are readily available. And they show up and they take care of the problem, and all you need to do is write the check. I know no one writes checks anymore, but you know what I'm saying. And now when we realize that it may not be that simple anymore, that things may not be as readily available, we may not be able to just, call a phone number and have all of our problems taken care of for us. And I think regardless of how little or how much you know how to do already, we're trying to consume as much information while we still can for that day when the information is cut off and we're truly on our own. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. It does show how, as a society, we've veered so far off the course of just kind of taking care of ourselves and learning how to do things, especially as men. I mean, women too, but very much men. That's always been a pretty common thing for the average working Joe, that they know how to do stuff. They don't have the money to go have a repairman fix everything and have a mechanic fix everything. For most stuff, they can just do it on their own, and they had to. They had to build their own fences and build their own houses and take care of their farms and take care of their animals. They had to learn how to be a vet and a butcher and a gardener and a construction, contractor, construction worker, carpenter, all these things, plumber, electrician. They had to learn how to do it all. And, well, we haven't. Most people in the modern world hasn't. And so we're trying to figure that out. We're trying to find out how to do everything while we still can. I just want to get a point across, though, with all that. Most things, it's just common sense. I mean, you certainly want to have some skill. You certainly want to have some knowledge where you've learned how to do something. You've learned how to small engine repair. Let's use that as an example. You've learned how to fix a lawnmower or some kind of small engine. You've figured it out. But a lot of it's just common sense, and just kind of figuring out how things might work. Understanding how a combustible engine works. And then figuring out, well, if it's not doing this, then it's probably one of these 2 or 3 things. And so then you investigate and try to repair it. Common sense, I think, has been the biggest thing that as a modern society we've lost. The old timers, a lot of times they called it horse sense or a few other things. And I think common sense is just something that we've just we've not relied on. It's a muscle that's not been exercised, okay? And because it hasn't been exercised, that muscle of common sense is in atrophy, where it's not being used because we're so dependent upon knowledge being at your fingertips, the answers, you Google it. You Google an answer, a question, you find an answer, you call a service, you take it somewhere to have it done, or if it's broken, you either fix it or you throw it away and you buy a new one, And we are entering a time period where those kinds of things may not always be available. You're not going to just be able to drive your car for a few years, and when it starts acting up, you trade it in, you get a new one. That's probably not going to happen for a lot of people for a while. You look at the cost of things. Appliances, you're going to have to learn how to fix things. I get it. Some of these new stuff, it's impossible to fix anymore. That's why I like to buy old stuff. I like to buy old stuff because I can fix it, kind of like this old truck I'm driving. I can fix it. Transmission goes out, I can put a new transmission in. I even know how to rebuild the transmission. I've done that before. Other things, water pump, something. And so I prefer to have things that I can take care of. And that, again, has been something that as a modern society we've moved away from. Instead of repairing things and keeping a vehicle 10, 20 years, we, trade it in every 3-5 years and get something new until it starts to kind of act up, and we trade it in again. And then the manufacturers know this, so they don't make a vehicle that lasts much longer than that before it starts falling apart, because they know people are going to trade it in anyways. These are simplistic things that a lot of people don't think about. And we should be thinking about that, because when things start falling apart and collapsing, taking something to a mechanic or calling some service out to your home, or hauling yourself, your spouse, your children to the doctor because you're sick, or injured, may not be plausible. It may not be something you can do. And, I know that we get caught up in the glory, I guess, of preparedness. We get caught up in the sensational stuff, in the cool stuff, the fad stuff. Oh, it's awesome, it's cool. I want that cool gear. I want to do that. I want to have that ability. But a lot of times these simple day-to-day things we don't think about. And we should. Because these kind of things can happen and the world still kind of be existing. We're not talking a complete apocalypse. We're just talking about something akin to the Great Depression. Some type of deep depression where a dollar loses value, and there's no jobs out there, and costs have gone up, and everything is just skyrocketing. Banks collapse, and so money isn't out there, and you're not able to. We're borderline in that way already. And you look at people that are working 2 and 3 jobs. I don't know how many young people I know, and when I say young, I'm saying 20s and 30s, that they're working 2 and 3 jobs. Full-time jobs, just barely scratching by. And it's because they grew up in this world thinking that they had to have a new car and the latest cell phone and a nice apartment or a nice house. And they didn't grow up in a world that, maybe you should struggle for a while to build up to that. Because everything was easy there for a while. And it's not easy anymore, and it's getting harder and harder. And so it doesn't have to be a complete falling apart of everything to get to this point. And this point that I'm talking about is just as devastating as running around in the woods, kitted out, shooting the bad guy zombies. It can be just as devastating for people because if you don't know how to do things, if you don't know how to fix things, you don't know how to take care of things, you don't know how to, do basic, simple things that's just required for day-to-day life, and then you can't afford it or it's not available any longer, what are you going to do? You end up homeless. You end up walking because you can't fix your car and can't afford one. Starving to death because you can't grow food and it's too expensive to buy. There's all kinds of possibilities. We should be thinking about this, even though it's not as dramatic and it's not as cool and high speed and glorious as all this other stuff. That stuff's great and cool, and it's important. Trust me, it's important. But just learning how to be responsible for yourself, have common sense, and do simple things that we just no longer do as a people, as a society, for the most part, That's survival too. That's learning how to exist outside the system. You know, the system is, you know, you've got the sniffles. You go to the urgent care, and the doctor and the pharmacy will give you medicine for it. You know, the system is, you know, your car breaks down, you take it to a mechanic, or you take it to the dealership and you trade it and get a new one. You know, your washer and dryer breaks, well, you just go buy a new one, and you put it on your charge card or credit card or some kind of financing through the big box stores. This has become the norm for a while, and it may not be that way anymore. We might have to get to the point when your child is sick, you have to learn how to take care of it on your own. Or if there's an injury, they fall, they break their leg, you may have to take care of that on your own. Your vehicle breaks down, you may have to learn how to fix it. Your appliances no longer work. Or there's no electricity any longer. You know, do you know how to cook a meal and keep yourself warm if the power goes out? These are things that so much of society has just forgotten, because it's been unnecessary. And a lot of society will continue to not know these things. And when it all falls apart, those are going to be the dangerous ones. Those are going to be the panic-filled zombies that don't know how to exist. They have completely lost their survival skills, those natural common sense skills of just how to get along in life. They've lost that, and they're going to go crazy. They're going to be a threat. And so not only do we need to learn how to take care of ourselves, we need to learn how to insulate, protect ourselves from those people. And that's something that it's not cool. It's not sexy. It's not high speed. It's not, you know, it doesn't get all the views. But honestly, when it comes to just simple surviving depressions and surviving collapses and surviving wars, these are just the simplest things that we need to do on a daily basis just to get along and to survive and to exist. And so I want to encourage you to learn these things, but also just develop common sense skills, which is something that you can't necessarily find on Google or read out of a book. A lot of it's just doing it. You know, go buy a broken down lawnmower and stick it in your garage and take it apart and put it back together and keep working on it till you get it running fixed. You know, stuff like that. Learn how to grow food. Learn how to fix things. You know, your chainsaw, if it stops working and you can't take it to a repair guy, what are you going to do? You need to learn how to repair it. You need to learn how to protect yourself. You need to develop just common sense skills, awareness skills when you're outside, you know, whether it's a four-legged threat or a two-legged threat. Most people don't have these anymore because they've never needed to use them. We need to start exercising that muscle of common sense and developing it into a point that it's a very dominant force in our life. And if we do that, then I think most of us will fare pretty well. Regardless of how much or how little of the preps you have, just having common sense is going to get you a long, long way, folks. It's time that we start getting our houses in order and preparing ourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.